cotton mill campaign. So he ends volume 1, and what he's done is a host of very interesting things. He's shown religio-racial oppression against the Irish, national oppression in the Anglo-Caribbean, racial oppression in continental Anglo-America, that's the South, and how racial oppression can be transformed. So it's a deep understanding of social forces. Here's volume 2. This he considered his life's work, this volume right here. Most of his 30 years was spent on this. He focuses on certain key dates. It covers the period 1607 to 1750. 1622, crucial, and most people not familiar with, reduction of labor to chattel labor status, Bacon's Rebellion, and then when they start codifying the laws in 1705. So he reviews the background, England's background, and points out that England was in the lead in developing agricultural capitalism way back in 1500s and 1600s. And this is crucial for understanding what develops here. But he also points out, and people may not be familiar with this, the English attempted to impose slavery on their own English vagabonds in the period 1547 to 1550. That was beat back. And they also imposed slavery on Scottish salt pan workers and coal miners for almost 2 centuries, right? So they're not, as Alan knew, he's a coal miner. He knew they care less who they want to get their money and they'll do it, right? So the struggle in England the class struggle in England results in the Statute of Artificers in 1563, which is a basic labor law in England, which exists for 250 years, and is what the colonists bring to Virginia. That's why this is important. And it holds that there would be no slavery and laborers would be paid wages, right? Virginia is supposed to be set up, no slavery. He goes into the common problems of European colonizing interest. They wanted to look for how they would secure a supply of labor and how they would establish social control. And in both cases, what develops in Virginia, and he's using Virginia because it's the pattern-setting colony. 7 of our first 12 presidents come from Virginia, right? Founding fathers. He discusses Euro-Indian relations throughout the Americas and certain particularities in terms of whether it's a continental colony, social stratification, how the Spanish could come and take advantage of the hierarchy of the Aztecs and Incas, to put them to work and maintain control, population density. But the key difference, and this is crucial for understanding that virulent white supremacy that develops here, is England alone, of all the European colonizing powers, was exporting European laborers. This is crucial, the demographics, right? So he talks about African migration to the Americas and points out what people may not be familiar with, that more Africans than Europeans come to the Americas between 1500 and 1800. He also points out the role of African resistance and keys in on the Haitian Revolution, its impact on the British West Indies, the US, Cuba, and Brazil. And he also makes the very important point that it was from Haiti that Simon Bolivar twice goes to regroup before he goes on his liberation efforts in Latin America. So it brings those ties and connections together. Allen discusses the Virginia Charter. It's set up, the colonists supposed to have all the rights, that they had in England. It's capitalist basis. He goes through, stocks, what people owned and all that. It's clearly capitalism, and why I'm emphasizing this, it's not simply the relations of production, which he goes into, and the financial interest, but it's not feudalism. Some people would say, this is a feudal carryover. We're talking capitalism. Plantations were capitalist enterprises, production monopolized by one class. They start developing the plantations in between 1610 and after 1614, 1616. The Powhatan, the Native Americans in the area of Jamestown, were well provisioned in the first decade or two. The preponderance of force, the English lacked the preponderance of force to, really do very much in terms of pushing them out or anything like that. In the early period, there's some intermediate forms of bond servitude that the plantation elite, they start bringing convicts, vagrants, maids for wives, and duty boys. This is 1618.